I never believed someone's eyes could ruin me. But his did. The first time I saw Professor Lucas, I forgot to breathe. His eyes weren't just blue. They were calm, deep, and quiet, like the sea right before a storm. The kind of eyes that could see straight through you without even trying. He didn't smile much, but when he did, it was soft. Almost shy. And maybe that was what made me fall. I was 16. Too young to be feeling something like that for a man like him. He was 25, tall, graceful, always in white shirts that fit too perfectly. His voice was low and steady, the kind that made the whole class go silent. Everyone respected him. No one dared to get close. Except me. At first, I told myself it was admiration. He was smart, disciplined, everything I wanted to be. But admiration doesn't make your heart skip when he calls your name. It doesn't make you stare at his hands while he writes on the board, or imagine how warm they might feel if they touched your face. No, this wasn't admiration. It was something far worse. Something I couldn't stop. Professor Lucas wasn't like the other lecturers. He was strict, painfully strict. If you came 5 minutes late, he would mark you absent. If you whispered during lectures, he would stop mid-sentence and stare until the whole hall went quiet. He never smiled when students tried to joke. He never accepted incomplete work, and if your paper wasn't perfect, he would fail you without blinking. He believed in discipline, the kind that made most students terrified to even raise their hands. He didn't tolerate excuses. Not sickness. Not tiredness. Not "I forgot." He had this cold, calm presence, like he didn't need to shout to make you obey. One look from him was enough. And maybe that was part of what drew me in. His control. His composure. His quiet authority. I shouldn't have been thinking about him like that. But I couldn't help it. One afternoon, after a long lecture, the classroom slowly emptied. Chairs scraped, papers shuffled, laughter echoed in the hallway, but I stayed behind. My heart was racing, my palms sweating. He was still at his desk, packing up his books. His expression was unreadable, his movements precise, neat, just like always. "Professor Lucas," I started, trying to sound calm. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. My throat went dry. "Yes, Eli? I don't understand today's topic." That was a lie. I understood everything. I just wanted to be near him. He sighed softly, the way he always did when students asked for help. "Which part exactly?" I pointed at the textbook. "The formula. I don't get how it works." He nodded, gestured for me to sit. For the next 20 minutes, he explained everything patiently. His voice was quiet, his fingers brushed the pages, and once they brushed mine. It was just a second, but my chest tightened. When he finally leaned back in his chair, he glanced at his wristwatch. "It's getting late," he said. "You should be heading home. I have a few things to finish before I leave." I nodded slowly, pretending to check my notes. "Can I come to your office tomorrow? Maybe after lunch?" He hesitated. I saw the faint line form between his brows. "Tomorrow's my free period." "Please," I whispered. "I just need a bit more help." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he sighed again. "All right. Tomorrow. 2 o'clock. That's how it started. Every day after class, I went to his office. Sometimes I asked questions I already knew the answers to. Sometimes I said nothing, just listened to his voice. He thought I was a hardworking student. I wanted him to think that. There were days he'd smile faintly and say, "You're one of my brightest students, Eli." And I'd smile back, hiding the ache in my chest. Because if he knew how I really felt, everything would end. Weeks passed. One evening, the rain poured heavily, and I was the last to leave the lecture hall. I ran through the hallway, drenched, and stopped when I saw lights still on in his office. I don't know what pushed me. Maybe it was the rain, maybe it was loneliness, but I knocked. He opened the door, surprised. "Eli, you're still here?" "I forgot my notebook," I lied again. My shirt was soaked through. He frowned. "Come in before you catch a cold." I stepped inside. The air smelled like coffee and chalk dust. He handed me a towel. "Thank you," I whispered. My voice trembled. He went back to his desk, typing something. The sound of the keyboard filled the silence. I watched the rain slide down the window, the way the light hit his face, the quiet curve of his mouth when he was focused. Something inside me broke. "Professor," I said softly. He looked up. "Yes." I hesitated. My fingers gripped the towel. "Do you ever get lonely?" His hands froze. His eyes met mine again. This time, not as a teacher, not as a student. Just as two people stuck in the same small, quiet room. He didn't answer. "I do," I continued, my voice trembling. "Sometimes I wish someone would just look at me. Really look at me." "Eli," his tone changed, deeper, softer. "You're too young to be saying that." "I'm 16, I said quickly. "I'm not a kid anymore." He stood up, closing the laptop. "Go home, Eli." But I didn't move. I stepped closer, heart pounding. The air between us was warm, tense, full of things we shouldn't say. He turned away, but I reached out, my hand brushed his sleeve. "Don't," he said, almost whispering. "Why not?" Because you don't understand what you're doing. I do, I said, my voice shaking. I understand perfectly. I stopped when he looked at me again. His expression was pained, torn between control and something else. The rain outside grew louder. My heart thudded against my chest. I should go, I whispered finally. He didn't stop me. But as I reached the door, I heard him call my name. Eli. I turned. He was standing there, eyes darker than before, his jaw tight. For a second, it felt like the whole world froze. Then he said softly, "You shouldn't play with fire." I smiled faintly, my heart breaking. Maybe I already got burned. And before I could think, I walked back to him. 1 step. 2. Close enough to see the rainlight in his eyes. He didn't move when my hand reached up and touched his cheek. For the first time, he didn't pull away. The rain outside softened. The air between us felt heavy, full of secrets, full of longing we both tried to deny. He whispered, "Eli, please." But his voice was trembling now. I could feel it, the fight inside him, the fear, the want. "Tell me to stop," I said. He didn't. That silence was the answer I'd been waiting for. That night changed everything. Sometimes it still felt like yesterday. The sound of his voice, the smell of his cologne, the way he looked at me when no one was watching. Other times it felt like a dream that never happened. I graduated, left the university, and moved to another city. But no matter how far I went, his memory followed me. Every man I met reminded me of him. Their tone, their eyes, even the way they said my name. But none of them were him. Lucas, the man who taught me what it meant to love and to lose. I became a teacher just like him. Maybe it was my way of feeling close to him again. I worked quietly, stayed out of trouble, and lived a simple life. But deep down I still hoped that someday, somehow, I'd see him again. Then one morning, while checking my emails, I saw something that made my hands freeze. Subject: Education Conference, guest speaker, Dr. Lucas Ward. My heart stopped. It couldn't be, could it? I clicked the link, and there it was, his picture. Older, more tired looking, but definitely him. The same sharp jawline, the same deep eyes. He was back, and he was coming to my city. The day of the conference, I couldn't focus on anything. My chest felt tight the whole time. I told myself not to go, that maybe he'd forgotten me, that maybe he had moved on. But I went anyway. The hall was big, filled with teachers, lecturers, and students. I sat near the back, too scared to get close. When he walked on stage, I forgot how to breathe. He looked different, a little older, a little sadder, but still strong, still composed. He spoke about education, about passion, about mistakes and forgiveness. But when his eyes swept across the room, just for a moment, I felt it. His gaze stopped on me. And in that brief second, I knew he recognized me. After the event ended, people crowded around him, shaking hands, taking pictures. I waited. When the crowd thinned, I finally gathered enough courage to walk up to him. He turned and our eyes met again. For a moment, neither of us said anything. It felt like time had stopped. "Lucas," I whispered. He stared at me, frozen. Then his lips parted slightly. "Eli." My chest tightened. Hearing my name from him again, after so long, almost broke me. "It's been years," I said softly. He nodded slowly. "You've grown." "So have you," I said with a small smile. There was silence again. Then he looked down, his jaw tense. "You shouldn't be here." I took a deep breath. 5 years, Lucas. I've waited 5 years just to see you again." He looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw everything he'd been holding back. Pain. Guilt. Love. He sighed. "I left because I had to. They were going to ruin my career. And I thought leaving would protect you." "I didn't need protection," I said, my voice shaking. "I needed you." His eyes softened. "I never stopped thinking about you, Eli. Not for a single day." My throat tightened. "Then why didn't you write? Why didn't you call?" He looked away. "Because I didn't think I deserved to." We stood there in silence, the noise of the world fading behind us. Then he said quietly, "Walk with me." We left the hall and walked to the small garden outside. It was quiet there, just us and the sound of the wind through the trees. He sat on a bench, and I sat beside him. For a while we didn't speak. Then, softly, he said, "You look happy." "I tried to be," I said honestly. "But I wasn't." He turned to look at me. "Eli." "Don't," I said quickly, blinking back tears. "Don't say it's impossible. Don't say it's wrong. We've been through all that before." He was quiet. Then he whispered, "I don't care anymore. I'm tired of running from something that never left me." My heart skipped. Then stopped running. He looked at me for a long time, and then, slowly, he reached for my hand. The moment our fingers touched, it felt like coming home. We sat there for hours, talking about everything, where he went, what he did, how lonely it was for both of us. He told me he worked in another country, trying to rebuild his life. But even there, he said, he couldn't forget me. "I thought maybe time would fix it," he said quietly. "But time only reminded me of what I lost." I smiled faintly. "Then maybe time brought you back to fix it." He laughed softly, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in years. "You still talk too much. And you still pretend you don't care," I replied. He smiled again. But this time it reached his eyes. The sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink. He looked at it and said, "You know, I used to watch sunsets alone and wonder if you were watching the same one." "I was," I said quietly. "Every day." He turned to me, his expression soft. "I don't know if I can give you everything you deserve, Eli. But if you still want this, if you still want me." I didn't let him finish. I leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't rushed this time. It wasn't forbidden or afraid. It was real, warm, steady, full of years of unspoken love. When we pulled away, I whispered, "I never stopped wanting you." He smiled, touching my face gently. "Then let's stop pretending." That night, we walked through the quiet streets together, side by side. No longer hiding. No longer afraid. People passed us, lights flickered, the world moved on. But for us, it finally stood still. He reached out and intertwined our fingers. "No more goodbyes," he said. "No more running," I answered. And for the first time in 5 years, I felt peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because he was there. With me. Where he was always meant to be.